Good evening. I hope you enjoyed that nice breeze we had the last couple of days. Shelby Struther would say it's not a change of seasons, it's just a big exhale, so don't get your hopes up too much. But on that subject, as hurricane season bears down upon us, among other things, I thought I'd take you back into a February of a few years past. Camus once wrote that summer existed within him even in the depths of winter. Now, we Floridians, on the other hand, must nurture slices of winter as we drift through our endless summers. That said, this is journal entry February 21. It's called A Necessary Optimism. Hope you like it. Weather 69 degrees, rain, winds calm. There are remnants of a cold front sitting right on top of central Florida. It had come through a few days ago, but then it backed up and stopped. I sat on the hearth tonight reading while my granddaughter played with toys on the coffee table. It was raining steady, dang near 70 degrees, but there was still fire in the fireplace. We Floridians will not be cheated out of our seasonal rituals. I had every intention of cleaning out a box of papers I had found in my closet, but there amongst the notes and receipts I happened upon an old essay Jim Harrison had written. I distinctly remembered pirating the article from a magazine in my doctor's office. There is no shame in liberating a good piece of literature. But I had to set it down. My granddaughter brought me a book on dolphins, insisting that we read it immediately, and I dropped everything to do so. I wonder if Harrison experienced grandchildren. Hope so. Just when you have abandoned all hope for the future, a little girl crawls up on your lap with a book. How is it that this underread Floridian embraced the rough voice of a writer from the wilds of Michigan's Upper Peninsula? Well, actually, he came to me. I had first stumbled upon Harrison's stories and poems in a collection of Key West literature my sister-in-law had given me. Key West, of all places. From that point on, he had me. I started reading with a notebook handy so I could jot down the mysterious and the profound. Now, anybody that knows me knows I cut my teeth on so many other great writers, but as I grew older, it was Harrison whose writing got to me. He had taken me on long walks, I like to say. Great stories make you want to live inside them. And as the writer once said, and that's what his words had done for me. He seems to be a character right out of a Hemingway novel, and maybe because of that each man's life had a lust for life, I should say. The two are constantly being compared. But Harrison's writing is much more lyrical, I've heard it said. His books glisten with the love of the world, Will Blythe said of Harrison. Its rivers and thickets, its highways and taverns, salted with a dark sense of humor, I might add. After the Dolphin book, I stoked the fire and started reading the essay again. This particular work was dark, just as I had remembered, filled with the writer's claims that the crimes against Native Americans were tied to the destruction of the environment. But that tattered narrative contained something else. It was my first encounter with his line about having to squint to see love among the ruins. Something out of Robert Browning, maybe? It was a phrase that reflected a necessary optimism, a choice to believe in things. And that idea stuck with me. It brought me closer to the American idea, that a mortal emblem of humanity, Lincoln called it, the belief in the worth and dignity of each person. Now, The little girl again climbed up on my lap and interrupted these deep thoughts with a story spoken in a language all her own. The joy she brought tempered my concerns, but she was gone as quickly as she came, preferring to follow the dogs around the house. And I just returned to my ruminations. Jim Harrison opened my eyes to parts of America that are difficult to know. I remember him saying that the last thing anyone with a conscience wants to ponder is our treatment of Native Americans. Regardless of my noble intentions to know this country's story or stories, I have at times fallen into that trap with so many other Americans who turn their faces from the sins of our ancestors. The daunting task of learning our history, of taking ownership of it, requires each of us to confront the fact that there's always more to the story. We need to preach incessantly about the culture of history, the understanding that the end of the lesson is the beginning of the learning. So, here I sit tending to the fire, a little worn out by what the writer called the fraudulence of my own hard work. I'm not completely sure what that means, but I love it. Fraudulence of my own hard work. I am mindful, and I'm sure you are too, that the cost of remembering can be equal to the cost of locking away and forgetting. Still, there's more to do. If we're even thinking of getting better, of moving closer to the ideal, there are more stories to tell, no matter how painful. What do the Cherokees say? We're still here. What has this all got to do with optimism? Everything. In the wake of both our failings and our accomplishments, the work continues in trying to be better than we are, and it requires more truth, not less. And here we find the indispensable need for optimism. David Brooks lamented the fact that so many people in business and politics these days have become completely obsessed with the short term because they see no long term, just a perpetuation of the here and now. And that, my friends, is a symptom of pessimism and cynicism. We need to nurture our optimism for the sake of our children and our children's children. That optimism manifests itself in resistance, not in the political sense, but in the spiritual. So the story goes, I'm a river, and I move along because life itself moves and I cannot stop it. The current threatens to wash away everything. But there is what Frost called that wave against the stream, resistance. In each of us, there is a need for tending to our past and going against the flow toward our beginnings. You have to learn to come down to the singular, Harrison advised. Cast your role as a screwdriver rather than a tank. The rain was really coming down, and for some reason my granddaughter started to cry. I picked her up and whisked her across the room. Big tears filled her eyes as I turned on the stereo, found that one particular cut off of Bob Dylan's self-portrait album, an acoustic version of Wigwam. I waltzed her around the living room as Dylan la-la'd his way through a simple, soothing tune. Here's one of the great songwriters of his generation, of anybody's generation, singing a song with no words. Go figure. I danced slowly and sang softly, and soon she calmed. So here we are, back in our long September. Squint, if you must, to see love among the ruins. Be heroically optimistic for the world, for your country, for your family, for yourself. I'll talk to you soon. Fair winds.